All right. We're going to start today's meeting with roll call. Senator Thompson. Senator Tao. Here. Senator Good. Here. Senator Frayne. Senator Johnson. Here. Senator Kintan. Here. Senator Collins. Senator Warner. Proxy. Senator Crump. Here. Senator Hebert. Here. Senator Bob. Present. Senator Samoa. Here. Senator Paul. Here. Senator Pesco. Here. Senator Dominguez. Here. Senator Imtiaz. Here. Senator Sneechy. Oh, here. Senator Christensen. Here. Senator Pope. Here. Senator Hoja. Here. Proxy. Senator Nelson. Here. Senator Ramsey. Here. Senator Landis. Proxy. Senator Saar. Here. Senator Vega. Here. Senator Cronin. Here. Senator Ogunsalami. Senator Schmidt. Here. Senator Trunny. Here. Senator Whitty. Here. President Abdulaziz. Present. Vice President Kramer. Here. All right, and it looks like our presentation, our first presentation is ready, the athletic fee. So we'll actually, if everybody, if you would, please give your full attention to them.
All right, so hi, my name is Bryson Moore. I'm Ty Dennis, SAC President, Student Athletic Advisory Committee, former football student athlete here at MSU. And we're here representing the Athletic Fee Advisory Committee today, so I'd like to thank you guys for allowing us to speak as well, and look forward to hearing some feedback and questions later. All right, so we have MSU Athletics, the main mission, or the three things that we like to mainly excel at, is being competitive in all the sports that we're in, doing well and excelling in the classroom as well, and contributing to the community. So I think there might be a misconception that most student athletes are, they don't pay very much or they're on scholarship. You can see right there.
Real quick, I'm really sorry. Can you speak up just a little bit louder?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Thank you. That makes it a lot easier here.
Like I said, I think the misconception is that most student athletes are on scholarship and are paying as much money as the average student. But as you can see on the board right there, or on the TV, the average Maverick student athlete that is participating in the D2 sports, or any of the 18 sports, is actually paying 70% of their own educational costs. So that kind of that might change some people's perspective on the student athlete, if they're paying any money, if they're not. So. And then, so why support Maverick Athletics? Well, first of all, it's not just athletes. It's a whole bunch of students, 900 students. So over 525 student athletes and over 275 just support staff students. What I mean by that is that's your student filmers, your student managers, your student assistants, your athletic trainers, the Maverick machine, cheer and dance. So it's just more than just athletes. And then Maverick Athletics provides over 25,000 student opportunities. And what I mean by that is that student opportunities to attend a lot of competitive athletic events. And it's one thing is we are really good. So I hope if you haven't been able to attend an athletic event, you are able to do so in the future. And if you refer to your handout, there's a lot of information on how successful Maverick Athletics has been this year and as well as last year as well. So please feel free to refer that throughout the presentation. We like to refer to athletics as a window to the university. And what I mean by that is it's a true rallying point of students, student athletes, faculty, alumni, allowing everyone to kind of have a sense of pride around one thing, representing our university, and it's a truly part of the college experience. So that's why Maverick Athletics is crucial for our support, and we appreciate all the support that we have been able to receive. So where do we start numbers-wise? Numbers-wise, right now, we're $3.71 credits or per credit hour, and right now we are the lowest of the four-year institution in the Minnesota State school system. Also, MSU is the only school that's less than $4 per credit hour, and we're 61 cents behind the average school, and we are 87 cents behind the highest institution at this moment in time. So. So just a little bit of fee support 101. To get the total student support, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, and it's covered in your handout, where you're taking the per credit support times the fee paying credit hours. And the real problem has occurred is that enrollment is declining. It's declined at about 11,000 credit hours, which is roughly a 3.4% decrease in the last 7 years, and that's created a flat growth rate over that 7-year period. And the total student fee support has been over $82,000 in the last 7 years, and we are extremely grateful for that. And we appreciate that support that we have been granted. But if you take that yearly growth over the 7 years, it comes out to roughly 1.5% over each year, and that's a really minimum flat rate of growth. And then when we factor in inflation or the CPI, it's really caused a lot of budgetary issues within the athletic department.
Right, and as I said, because of those things, obviously all the athletic teams are trying to support themselves. So right now, the overall budget, the operating budget is $5.2 million. The fee support is supporting 1.7 or 1.17 million of that. So the student fee funded, the percentage for that is 22%, and then the outside resources are 87% of that. So that is ticket sales. So at the gate, or so if you go to a football game, a hockey game, those ticket sales are being incorporated into that. Corporate partnerships, special fundraising events, donor support, and institutional support as well. So that's making 78% of that of the money that these sports teams are getting.
So here's the nitty-gritty why we're here. So we propose that the MSSA supports the referendum process for a 4% increase. And like I mentioned before, the 4% increase is going to help us outpace the downward trend of enrollment, as well as keep up with the CPI or inflation. So if we were to get a 4% increase, we're going to net a 2% increase of growth, which is going to help us balance out inflation costs. But if the referendum process was not to move forward and we were just to cap at the required 2%, the minimum without going to the referendum process, and we were granted that 2% increase, the total fee support would only be about $1,600 per team. And with 20 teams, you do the math for that's only calculating out for $3 per student athlete. And we would continue to fall behind other institutions in the Minnesota state system. And just speaking from a student athlete experience standpoint, we're very fortunate to have what we do have, and it has been a great experience my 5 years here. But if without continuing support or increasing that support, the quality of our experience might be hindered because of that. You know, to play a game in Minot, North Dakota, you got to get on the bus, drive 10 hours. That costs money, gas money, stay in a hotel, eat a good meal, and drive back. And with the CPI increasing roughly 2 to 3% every single year, these costs adds up. So if we're limited just at that 2% without going to the referendum process, we're going to continue to be behind other Minnesota state institutions in the MSCU.
All right, so why support a referendum? Well, first off, we want to remove the pressure off at MSSA on entirely making this decision or being responsible for making this decision. We kind of want to give it more to the student body. So for the upcoming election process, we want the students to have their voice be heard, and for them to be able to have the option to decide if they want this or not, if they want to pay the extra money and support these teams that some of these people do support and go out and watch, and others obviously I understand that don't, but we want to give the students a voice. And this also offers more time to share and gather information, so we can also get feedback from you guys or get feedback from the student body on if they even want this in the first place or not. So yeah.
So just to recap, why 4% increase, just looking at the numbers here, a 4% increase provides us approximately $24,500 of budget revenue to use for all 20 sports teams. Like I mentioned before, that 4% is going to help outpace the enrollment downcline. The 4% after inflation is factored into it. We're still going to be ahead of the CPI index, which is continuing to increase every single year. And interestingly enough, the 4% increase will still keep us below the $4 credit threshold that is legislated through the Minnesota state system. And then just looking ahead, if we were to continue to have a 4% increase over the next 2 years, once we reach that 2-year mark, we would still be, we would eventually reach the lowest funded school in the Minnesota state system, which is Southwest Minnesota State. And then if we were to look 4 years down the line and continue with the 4% increase, once having that 4% increase after 4 years, we will reach the average of all Minnesota State MSCU systems, assuming there's no growth between those institutions and us. So with that being said, that's our presentation. If you have any questions, we feel comfortable asking them, but some questions we will defer over to Mr. Kevin Beisman, Director of Athletics, as well as Mr. Tim Marshall, Associate AD, for any other questions as well. So thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to speak.
Do the senators have any questions? Vice President Kramers?
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for coming. I just wanted to know what will everything past the inflation? What will all the extra revenue go towards? I know you said it was split in between, so I know in past we've talked about specifically funding hockey travel, and I just am curious about where that extra revenue would be.
Yeah, from my understanding, most of the total fee support is, I know for a fact it's not going to the scholarships. I know a lot of it is just going to the operational budgets for each sports team. And like I said, that's going to involve travel for all 20 sports. So it's just going to help ease those costs that they do have. I'm sure Mr. Marshall, the finance guy, might have more to add into that. But as far as my knowledge, that's where the money would go towards.
President Abdulaziz?
Yeah, so thank you for coming. I personally I'm interested in the budget, but I kind of want to hear about your specific, like, athletic. I kind of want to hear about your story, but not like the long version, but in terms of, like, how was your experience here with your 5 years here as a Maverick athlete?
Yeah, I've had a great experience. I'm extremely blessed. Without athletics, I wouldn't be able to stand up here and talk to you guys. I've been able to serve on multiple committees, allowing me to learn either about the athletic budget, serving with SAC as the president, being on that committee for 5 years. So I've kind of had a unique experience. But as far as having financial support, I don't want to say that more money creates better experiences, resulting in more wins and the competitive aspect of it. But from a quality standpoint, it's going to be noticed from an equipment standpoint, facilities, team meals before and after games are crucial to just the overall student-athlete experience. And if that were to be taken away or lessened, from my standpoint, I don't think it would have been as an enjoyable experience. And I know we were very fortunate to have all the student support that we do have outside of just student athletes. We have all the Maverick machine, the athletic trainers, the media intern relations. So it's kind of all one big combined effort, and I think we are very fortunate that what we have, in my experience, has been great. And I know student athletes at other institutions that don't have everything that we do have, their experience has been hindered from that.
Thank you.
Roxy Wolf?
2 questions.
Yes.
Right. Kevin, this might be a question more towards you. This is coming from who I'm proxying for. Each year you present a projected budget of expenses and revenues to Senate. Presumably, in most years, the actual revenues and expenses vary somewhat from the proposed budget. Does your area have a general reserve fund for excess revenues or savings of expenses?
We do have a reserve fund that we've had to tap, and I don't know that it's the best kept secret. Athletics has run a deficit the last 3 years. We've come before the Senate to talk about some of the factors that have contributed to the deficit. A lot of it had to do with WCHA realignment and increased travel costs that have come to hockey. She kind of mentioned that was a strategy we talked about, is earmarking funding for to offset some of the increased costs that we've had with the hockey realignment. We've also experienced a pretty significant downturn in revenue related to the tournament. used to be that we took a pretty healthy guarantee check home, and now we're subsidizing our opportunity to play. Tickets are on sale. We should be home for the next 3 weekends, we hope. But all told, sort of the hockey realignment has created about a $350,000 structural budget challenge. So at one time, there was a reserve fund for intercollegiate athletics that we are tasked with restoring, but we've had to tap into that reserve to offset that deficit.
Thank you.
Can you answer my other questions?
We're with Senator Good.
Personally, maybe my fellow senators would want this also, but I'd kind of like to see what specifically the increase would cover. I know Vice President Kramer has mentioned like last year, we were told it was going to be going towards traveling for the hockey team. And maybe I'm missing it, but I'm not seeing where that increase would go to. And with this being an increase that the students would vote on, I think it'd be beneficial for senators to see what we're going to be posing to our students of what this is going to be going towards. Not saying that it's needed or not needed, but it'd be nice to know specifically what it's going to.
Yeah, I think that we would be happy to kind of provide more detail and more directed. Probably our biggest challenges are related to hockey, and as Ty and Bryce had noted, with a 4% increase, if you look at what the projected trend or the downturn is in enrollment, the 4% increase, we're not going to net an additional 4% in total student fee support. In fact, net about $25,000. Now, I want to make that absolutely clear. That's not $25,000 per team. That's $25,000 total. And probably from our standpoint, it does not make sense to extrapolate or spread that additional $25,000 across 20 teams. It becomes a negligible amount. Probably our most focused effort would be shoring up some of the challenges that we have in hockey. Travel expense is one area that I think could be earmarked for this additional $24,500. You don't want to have a favorite child when you've got 20 of them, but hockey is the biggest provider. It subsidizes. It is the one that generates the most revenue. It does create a subsidy to help operate the other sports. So it is a little bit of our golden goose, and I think that would probably be where we would focus these additional monies is shoring up the golden goose and making sure it's healthy so that it can help to sustain the other programs as well. Did that answer your question?
I guess just kind of a yes or no if there will be more information about what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, we can certainly provide more. I think that the bottom line is it's going to go towards travel expenses to eventually to all student athletes, basically trying to offset the inflationary cost of doing the same thing that we're doing. So each schedule varies slightly each year. There might be 6 home games for football versus 5, and it flips the other on off years. And so there'll be some individualized budget adjustments there, but basically it's safe to say travel costs would be and then staying the same would more than eat out the increase that we're asking for.
But we would be happy to provide additional detail of how that additional $25,000 from a 4% increase would be allocated back to the budgets and what specific areas would be targeted.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
John, did you have a question? Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you two very much for your time, and thank you for coming and talking to us.
Thank you.
So the next presentation we have is the technology piece. You guys need any help with technology? Yeah, just in case. Thank you. Get out of your way. everybody get a copy? Comment right there. All right, good afternoon. Again, as way of introduction, I'm Mark Johnson, Vice President, Chief Information Officer here at Minnesota State University. I've come and seen and spoke with you, I think 3 or 4 times this semester, or this school year so far. Today, we're going to focus a little bit on the technology fee and the general funding of IT solutions. Brian's going to do the majority of the presentation, and Brian, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Brian Schneider, Assistant CIO, Chief Information Officer.
And what I want to do real quickly, you can see in the front of your document something we don't have in our presentation. And by the way, we didn't hand the presentation out, so we try to mix it up a little bit. What we have in our process for student fees is a consultation process that was developed a number of years ago. And the point of the consultation process is to engage students, faculty, and staff to learn as much as possible about what we do on campus with technology. And it's a 6-week process in which we educate, we go look at virtually everything on campus, each area within IT comes and speaks, and at the tail end of that, which is about a week or so away, we then engage with the students and come up with a list of what we want to accomplish together next year using the technology fee, but technology in general. So what we're going to do is talk you through a little bit of that and the process. We're not done with that yet, so as far as the students giving their final thoughts of what we may do next year, we'll have a full document that we'll present to you in a few weeks. But what you'll see in the next page of this in this document that we handed out is a report card where the students laid out what they wanted us to do last year, and then to the right of it, what we've done. So we're really trying to be responsive to what the Student Senate has asked us for. We try to engage with students, faculty, and staff, talk about what we need to do, document that, and then show that we've done it. So I'll let Brian continue on now. He's got a little bit of information here that I've covered, and then he's going to walk through kind of broader budget understanding of the IT area. And then I'll talk a little bit at the end about where we're going to go from here. We also have a little cool video or a little cool thing we're going to show you, so hopefully get you a vision of the future. Maybe not next year, but very soon.
So you're familiar with the student allocation process, and really all different departments go through kind of a very similar thing. So that I can kind of familiarize you with the different services that ITS provides. You look over on the left-hand side, we have operations, which is project manager. Solution architects are kind of our consultants that work with the departments, with the faculty and the departments to understand how they're using technology. And then they're kind of the liaison with ITS so that we can build things that they can use for their curriculum and their classes. We have a computer store that sells computers, backpacks, supplies, and software to students. Over in the next column over, we've got customer services, and that's mostly our service desk, our help desk, where students can go and get help with their technology, and they also help support the classrooms. Also in that group is web and application development and video production. So all the equipment that you see, the recording of the video, producing the video and publishing them, live streaming them, that's all done within our department. Next center column, that's my group, Technology Services. So we provide networking, network services, communication systems, and just supporting the infrastructure of the university. We have information security, and over on the right-hand side is academic technologies. Academic technologies, we have some instructional designers that work with the faculty to help design curriculum and help improve their curriculum. And they also can take a program and help design it to be on an online program. And another area that they are responsible for is all the computers that are on campus in specialized labs, in the library, in the hallway, like in the basement of the CSU. We take care of all those computers, make sure that they're operating, they have proper software on them, and they're also replaced periodically when they wear out. This group also takes care of all the computers that are in offices and all the computers that faculty and staff use as well. And finally, the last group under that division is classroom support. They take care of all the technology that's in the classroom, so presentation systems, projectors, control systems, audiovisual equipment, and things like that. So it's a combination of the services that we provide with the staff and equipment, software, maintenance, and things like that. So to show you where our money comes from, it is kind of complex, a little more complex than most divisions. Most of our revenue we get from the general fund. And recall that the general fund is a combination of tuition and state appropriation. The system office gets that, the university gets a general fund, and we get a portion of that. They set aside part of the general fund for us to have an IT department, for us to provide the services they use every day. So we get a portion of the general fund. Over on the upper right-hand side, we also get $500,000 every year from the Mid-State System Office to help with our infrastructure and keeping that up to date and replacing it. So that's an additional $500,000. Over on the right-hand side is institutional equipment. And that's money that's provided for the university for equipment purchases that kind of go above and beyond normal budgets. Now this $1 million is open to all colleges and all departments to put in proposals. Works kind of like a grant. So if dental needs new dental chairs, they would apply for some of this institutional equipment. If science lab needs a new electron microscope, or a department wants to replace some of the furniture in the classroom, those kind of allocations come out of institutional equipment. I'm going to kind of refer back to this in the next slide, but we got $1 million from institutional equipment last year to help replace all the network equipment that was end of life. So that's another allocation, and all three of those kind of combine into the general fund. Down on the lower right-hand side, we have a computer store that takes in revenue for selling computers. And on the left-hand bottom, we have service level agreement. So what service level is, we're given money from different departments and actually all Minnesota State schools to provide additional services beyond what we normally would. So an example is if you're living in the residence hall and you've used Res Tech Depot, Res Live gives us additional money to hire the staff to staff the Res Tech Depot so that we can provide better support for the residents that are living in the residence halls. And finally, on the upper left is student tech fees. So the breakdown of that is our student tech fees is about 25% of our budget. The general fund is about half of our budget, and then the income generating ones, the computer store, SLAs, that's the remainder of the budget. Now this is skewed a little bit because we got an allocation of an extra $1 million to pay for the networking equipment. So that kind of makes the general fund side a little bit higher for last year. One way of comparing or evaluating just how much revenue we have for staffing versus how much for all the other stuff, the technology, hardware, software, supplies that we use, is a comparison of salary versus non-salary. So on the left-hand side, you'll see how it breaks down with all of our budgets. And over on the right-hand side, we kind of strip out the computer store revenue and the SLA revenue. So then we're just looking at general fund and tech fee. So one thing, this is a little bit skewed this year because of that $1 million, but typically it's about 35% equipment, software, supplies, services, and about 65% of our budget goes to student and staff, students and staff salaries. Looking just at the tech fee, we split it out into those areas we call the org chart. we split that out depending on the services that we provide. So stacking that up and looking over the past 6 years, this is how the distribution is. And things vary from year to year depending on the projects, depending on the things that we need to do. I do want to point out though that we do have a couple of areas where we're overspent for the year. The line actually is the tech fee revenue and the bars are the spending. But if you look at that blue bar down there, we actually received a gift of telepresence equipment that was about $250,000 worth of telepresence equipment. And we have to account for that. Even though we didn't spend the money, it wasn't an expense, we have to account for it like it were an expense. So that actually made it look like we spent more than we actually did. The other areas are mostly due to spending timing. So if we're going to buy 400 computers for the year to replace older computers, we typically can bundle a large purchase together, and depending on when we do that purchase, it can end up looking like we're in a deficit or we haven't spent money and that surplus carries over. So the fiscal year begins on July 1st. If we make that purchase before the fiscal year, it'll look like we have a deficit. If we make it after the fiscal year, before we get the new money, then it'll look like we had a surplus that carried over. So a lot of that is due to timing. Right. To look at it another way of what the breakdown is of what we have for faculty and staff and student labor, we have about 50 full-time staff, we have about 85 students. And these students that work for us are just amazing. They bring great skills together and all across the different areas, from instructional designers to developers to security personnel to work in our service desk. They provide a great deal of support for us. In the middle column is maintenance software. And over on the right-hand side, the two larger bars, the largest one is for equipment and supplies. Now this is equipment that is under $10,000 and does not include computers, but it does include things like projectors, control systems, like we have here. It includes supplies that we use for networking, cameras, video cameras and things like that. But what it doesn't include is computers and large equipment over $10,000. That's in the large equipment category. So let's break down. Looking at how our tech fee is compared to the other universities, it's really hard to make a comparison because there's caps. We're capped at 12 credits. Some of the other institutions are not. So what I did was I kind of combined everything on here. And on your handouts, you have some of these slides. This might be hard to read, but at the bottom of the last page, I've included a link that you can go out to look at this presentation. You can look a little bit more closely at the numbers. But this shows the enrollment versus the total tech fee revenue of all the universities. And there's also a couple columns on the bottom of the table that show what the tech fee is. Tech fees are capped at $10 a credit, and where everybody is at right now. All right, just a couple things about technology. Do you want to talk about this?
Go ahead.
Okay. The thing about technology is that it's not like you purchase it and then you're good to go for 10 years. The thing is that technology does wear out and it has to be replaced. So if you have a cell phone and you haven't gotten, it's an older one and you haven't gotten any security updates in 6 months or a year, chances are that it's not supported anymore. And it's very vulnerable to hackers and malware and things like that. Same thing as all of our other equipment, because really all of our equipment is computers. So we have to make sure that it's supported by the vendor, that we're getting software updates and we're getting new versions as they come out. And we have to pay for that. So when a piece of equipment is not supported anymore, we have to replace it or get rid of it. The thing about technology is that it is costly to maintain. It's like buying a car, paying for that car, and then paying 20% of that purchase price every year for that extended maintenance contract. So most of the equipment that we buy, we have to pay for it and then we have to maintain it over the next 3 to 5 years whenever it's end of life. One thing that's very interesting about software in particular is typically we bought software and then we'd have to pay that 20% maintenance, and now they're changing it so that it's more of a subscription model. So it's kind of changes things, like rather than purchasing a car, like you lease a car. So we're leasing our software, and the cost is actually a lot more, but we have to pay that entire cost over the next successive years until we stop using the software. So a lot of the software is going by pay as you use it and leasing the software. So we're kind of struggling with how to pay for some of these software packages when all of a sudden they say that instead of 20% per year, now we have to pay like 60 or 70% of that cost every year. Some recent projects I've included on your handout that you can go through and see some of the major things that we've done over the past year, as well as some upcoming projects. A couple of things to point out in the upcoming projects are we replace 1/5 of our student computers every year. So we have a rotation that we go through to keep them current. And then when they're taken out, they're actually repurposed and given to grad students and some departments that don't get new computers. So they're reused, and by the time we finally throw out those old computers, they're not really useful. There's nothing left. 75 classrooms. We do the same thing for classrooms, where we do a portion of the classrooms every year in order to keep that technology current. Bus tracking app, you've talked about that, and we're going to be working on that with the city over the next year. And then finally, there's another one, new technology that we're looking at. And I'll show you a couple of videos about them that really is kind of intriguing. And this is meant for the classroom. We're going to get one here that we can show faculty so that they can get an idea of how it might be used. I can show that now. So everybody's seen smartboards in the classroom. Smartboards aren't really very smart. A lot of times they're just used as a screen, kind of like that screen up there. But imagine if you have the screen and your teacher can write on it using a virtual pen and then change that formula into an actual graph. Yeah, so this is an electronic whiteboard. And some other things that you can do with this are, it's got a ruler so that you can draw straight lines, you can draw angles, you can draw like a circle or a triangle on here, and it'll actually turn it from a handwritten drawing to an actual angle, and you can change the angle of that. Imagine if you're in a calculus class and your teacher is writing out a formula. She can do it, and then all that is saved on this virtual whiteboard. And this whiteboard is multi-touch. You can touch the screen, you can zoom in and out like you would on a phone, and you can scroll up and down, keep writing and keep writing. At the end of the class, your teacher can take whatever was written on here, and she can either save it or she can send it out to the class, so the class will have reference codes. So that's pretty cool. It takes this dumb device and really makes it into a very functional device. Another thing too is that it can be a projector like it is, so you can connect all kinds of devices to it wirelessly, phones, laptops, things like that. So it can be used as a projection. Here's what it actually looks like. Multiple people can use it at the same time. On the right and left-hand side are actually two cameras, speakers and microphones. So you can have, and it's got built-in Skype, so that if you have distant learning classes, let's say you've got students that are connecting and using it from all across the world, they can connect in and they can see what's on the whiteboard. They can see the professor and they can also see the class. So it's got Skype built into it. And that's where they're sending it out to the students, and they're able to use that. Multi-touch, three-dimensional. It really takes what would be a display that's presenting only, and it really turns it into an actual creation device. And here's another video with an app that's running on it, where they're taking it and using it in music class. They're actually composing on here. You notice that we're still getting pricing on that. We don't have that yet.
That sounds worse than it is. So we're in the 20,000 range, and we're starting, and these is emerging technology, but I think we're going to be able to get this outfitted over time for significantly less than that, or started as with our replacement cycle, start saying, where do we have a projector or a screen, and where can we replace it with that? So for an incremental cost, we can get a lot of added value.
So you look at, the cost seems high, but when you look at what it has built into it, it's got everything that's there. Control system, projectors, all that stuff is put in here. Plus it also has what we typically have right now for telepresence capabilities. So we're able to have meetings with students and other schools. And it puts that all on one screen. So we typically get academic pricing on software and hardware that we buy. So that's why I'm asking to say exactly what it's going to cost. We can really negotiate the price down typically from what a typical business would pay for it. But this is one of the things that we're showing. We're going to get one, we're going to demo it, we're going to show faculty how it's used. If we have faculty that are really interested in it, they want it in their classroom, then we'll work with finding the funding sources for it, and we'll start putting it in the classroom. So we can potentially get rid of these. And, you know, how many times have you been to a presentation or been in a class and the little markers don't work? This will always work. All right. One of the other areas that we're going to be investing in and improving is the Academic Computer Center or the Solution Center down in the basement, first floor of Wisnik Hall. And this is one of the ideas for a classroom. We're changing the computer lab from having just tables with computers on them and putting them into clusters. Same amount of seats, but it's a more active learning and collaborative environment. This is just one idea. So we're working with the Tech B committee on some plans. We'll also be working with the technology research, technology.
All right, so we're going to wrap up. We probably went a little longer than we were planning on it, but I think you get an idea. What we're going to suggest to you, and by the way, a couple of other key things that weren't mentioned, but you mentioned the web team. I don't know if anybody noticed, but we have a little different website out there now. And that's about 2 years in work, and it's very targeted to the prospective students and prospective families, so it's going to continue to grow. We have about 30,000 pages left to move, so it's going to take us a little bit of time. That's a lot. And the other thing I wanted to mention is within the next month, we're also going to be adding a product called Eduroam to our wireless network. And once you log into Eduroam, which you will be able to, it stands for educational roaming, you'll be able to log into our network, use it, and any other higher education institution within this country and some overseas facilities as well, you'll be able to use your wireless login anywhere you go. So I happen to use Eduroam myself right now. I was at St. Olaf on last weekend. It worked at St. Olaf. I stopped at a place up in town that had a University of Minnesota Extension Center, University of Minnesota. It works. So we're going to be putting that in and giving you that capability that anywhere that you go to an educational institution that has wireless and has Eduroam, you'll be able to use that. So I think we're ready to entertain any questions or concerns. Again, we have a couple more weeks of our consultation process with our students before we formulate our final recommendations. And so we just have some preliminary recommendations and ideas that you'll see on the second to last sheet that we're starting to discuss with students. It's the bottom half or bottom quarter of this page. But that's part of what we want to do. It's this sheet here. I put some highlights on it. And we will be bringing you back a more solid proposal with students and have them talk about it as well.
All right, real quick before we do questions, please keep the questions pertinent to just fee or budget related stuff, and don't ask questions about some of the new technology. That was really cool, thank you for bringing that, but just since that's a future thing, ask questions that are going to be pertinent to the budget this year. And so first we have Senator Johnson.
What?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were raising your hand. Senator Whitty?
Yield to answer my question.
Perfect. Senator Vesco?
Could you go back to the slide that had the pie graph with the tech fee on it?
This one?
It was a pie graph.
Oh, pie graph.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. Thank you.
And if you would like these slides, you're welcome to have, we can send them to you, you can review them in detail.
The link is on the bottom of the.
Yeah, just you can actually go online, look at it right now. It might take a little longer, maybe we got all the questions answered, huh? All right.
Thank you very much for your time.
I had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. John, go ahead.
Just so I can make sure, not the next meeting, but the meeting after that is when they're actually deciding on their recommendation for the fee. So do you have any kind of number? Because, yeah.
The only thing I could say is, what I didn't want to do is give a number out before we consult with the students. We were in the process of doing that. We did talk about it briefly last week. We might have got I see puzzled looks by my fellow staff members, and so we might have misunderstood how the process changed this year. But we are thinking that we'll go to the 19 more cents, and they'll bring us to our $10 maximum is what we were kind of thinking. And our students seem to say, we want more of what you're talking about. And so that would be less than 2%, but we're looking at about 19 cents, I believe, between $9.81 and $10. So that's the delta between those two. That's all that's left.
Yeah, the next meeting that this is brought up is when it'll actually vote on.
Okay,
so
sorry about that. He had it in here, I told him to take it off because we weren't ready, so that was my fault. Do you want the system up, or are we done?
I don't believe so.
All right, next we have a real quick presentation from John. Or, not really a presentation. John's got some information for budget that's pertinent.
Real quick. Okay, so as you've seen today, these are the last presentation that you're going to hear before you actually get into voting on budgets for next year. Your next meeting on the 14th is when both the athletics fee and the student activity fee will be voted on. Okay, so that's going to be your long meeting. In front of you, you have a copy of the spreadsheet, a version of what you received last week with the student activity fee budget. The difference between this one and the one that you received last week is that there's a blank column for the recommendations that the student senate makes to President Davenport for approval. Okay? So that is what you're going to be filling in next week. I would suggest, or next meeting on the 14th, I would suggest bringing with you a pencil and an eraser. Okay? Because there are some things that might change a little bit. So I would suggest doing that for that meeting. So during that meeting, typically what will happen is Mr. Speaker will provide you the format for that, but typically we go down it and start putting in those numbers. And between Amber and I, we will have a version of this up on a screen for you that we will be updating real time as you approve recommendation numbers, and it will be calculating all the way along what that fee actually is. And in the end, we will see what that request or that increase is based on the modifications that you might make to this budget. That being said, the groups that will be here and will be talking to you next week, or I keep saying next week, on the 14th, are the ones who are planning to appeal, and the ones that you request actually be there to answer any questions that you might have. Right now, I'm going to give you a couple that you can actually either highlight or put a star next to, because these are who, as of now, we know plan to appeal the recommendations and or provide further clarifying points on their own. Those are line number 23, the reporter. Line number 40, Student Activities Administration. Line number 46, RSOs. And line number 47, Student Events Team. These groups have until Friday at noon, I believe, to let Teresa know if they plan to appeal. And those are the only groups that we've heard of. We've heard a couple say, I'm happy with the recommendation, I don't plan to appeal, thank you. Okay, so we've seen those come in as well. So, that being said, if there are any other of these areas who you think that you would have questions for, or who you see a likelihood or a thought about potentially changing already, we need to know who those groups are so that we can ask that they be there. Those groups might be among those who said, I'm happy with the recommendation, thank you very much. And they may not plan to be there, okay? That being said, also, if you do ask for them to be there, know that they aren't necessarily planning a presentation. And so know what questions you might have for them if they were to come up to the podium. They're going to step up there and they're going to be like, okay, I'm ready for questions, okay? So that's what we're going to recommend that you do. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't care how you do it during this meeting, but however you would want to get that list so that we can notify groups that they have been asked to appear on the 14th by the Senate. We need to try to get that. Okay.
So, question, are there rules or guidelines for appeal process when they come in?
I have sent an email to the executive leadership to see how they're going to actually do that. There have been ways that we've done that in the past, and it's not set in stone that that's how it shall be. But that group will make some decisions on how that happens. Typically, the group typically it's a timed presentation that they get to present their appeal in, and then the Senate gets to ask questions of them. And it may not be right then and there that the Senate actually votes on the recommendation. Typically, they'll go through all of the appeals before taking any votes. Any questions? And again, however you want to try to get that list, if there are people who want to throw out groups that they would like to have appear, that would be, I'll do that.
Yep. Okay.
You want me to just ask that question now?
We'll just do a piece of paper. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be, I was trying to facilitate some other stuff for new business. Yeah, we'll just send around a piece of paper. Are people okay with that? That simplifies things pretty well. Sorry, John.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Is there anybody here to speak at open forum? All right, seeing as nobody is here for open forum, we'll move into the approval of consent agenda. And is there any dissent?
Motion to remove Senator India's name from Senator reports.
All right, you'd like to remove your name from Senator reports?
Seconded.
All right, doesn't really need a send. All right, well, that's fine. All in favor of removing the name, please signify by raising the placard. All right. Name removed, so take off Senator MTS, up Senator reports today. All right. Senator Johnson?
What's the procedure if the senator's absent from the Senate report? I don't think that's happened yet.
Yeah, they'll just get skipped over.
Okay.
So, thank you. All right, any dissent to pass in the consent agenda? Seeing no dissent, agenda passes. Move into officer reports, President Abdulaziz.
Perfect. Budget season. All right. Okay, so to start off, first things first, I just thought it'd be interesting for you guys to know, I just got an email before I came to the meeting, that Students United, they're doing their elections. Oh, you want me to be louder? Okay. So yeah, their elections are coming up, officer elections. Anybody can send in their nomination, it's a written nomination for either of the officer positions, and those will close next Thursday. So I don't know if anybody's interested in that, but usually the officer positions are state chair, vice chair, and treasurer. So if you're interested, I can shoot you the link, just let me know. April delegate is going to be April 6th to the 7th at St. Cloud. So let me know if you're interested. Then we have Pedal Pass Poverty. I'd like to give them a round of applause for the people who came to Pedal Pass Poverty. You know who you are. Yes, yes. We all average about 5 miles. If somebody says we didn't, they're lying. And then the Student United Scholarships will also be closing on April 1st. It's a lot of money, and usually a lot of people don't apply for them. So don't miss up another opportunity to get free money. And then, of course, we have Senator of the Month. So can I get a drum roll, please? This Senator of the Month is Nathan Pesclo. Nathan has done amazing. He's done above and beyond what I think any senator should. And specifically, I want to give him a huge shout out for the collaboration event with Bethany or Lincoln? Lincoln. Yeah, I've heard great things, especially with other senators that went. They really enjoyed it. And I think that's amazing that you're reaching out to other universities to do a collaborative event. And maybe we can do other things, and maybe this would be something where we keep going and we have a relationship with them. So with that, also, Nathan drove my car for me yesterday. Situation, so that was pretty cool. So congratulations, Nathan. And then with that, I yield. I have no more updates.
Are there any questions for President Abdulaziz? Next officer report. We Vice President Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just wanted to give a quick update. Senator Nelson and I went to a city and university meeting last Thursday. So that included South Central, Bethany, a representative from the city, and then us. Yeah, Dr. Jones was there. We had some pretty good conversations. We had a conversation about how Bethany is proposing a mental health fee for their students so they can start offering services for the mental health for students. And then South Central is looking to talk to a couple people on our campus about how we go about supporting the mental health of our students. So look out for information for that. And otherwise, just a quick shout out. I don't think any of you guys were there, but the Dance Marathon ended up raising over $30,000 for the kids. Thank you for everyone who donated. We're still accepting donations until March 15th. So help us reach our goal, $32,000. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any questions for Vice President Cameron? What?
Just like to do another, this is not even on the thing, but I'd like to thank Mr. Coward and Barnes & Nobles for sponsoring us for Pedal Past Poverty.
You didn't clean the towels, you sweat it up a long time.
Still got to work on it.
All right, I'm going to move into my own officer report. I put a reminder on the budget meeting is March 14th. So because next week is spring break, that is our next meeting. And John kind of just talked about that. So make sure that you do come to that meeting ready. Also, it's going to start at 3 p.m. It does start at 3 p.m. If you need a note to get out of class, Amber, are you able to give them that? Or so if you have class and you need to be excused from your class, Amber can help facilitate you getting that note to your professor, and they should be able to let you be excused. Remember that office hours are due today. Today's the only 1 week period, and that's because we have spring break. Just quick reminders too, with spring break, make sure that you are being smart. Don't post anything on social networks that might discredit or bring dishonor to the university. Yeah. Basically, don't do anything stupid on social media. In addition to, if you are of age and you are able to partake and you are going somewhere out of Minnesota or even here, just be careful, especially if you're traveling someplace else. Make sure that you're taking a friend with you. Don't put yourself in a bad situation because that can also be very dangerous too. So,
thanks.
Yeah, you are welcome. And that is all for my officer report. Senator Woody, did you still have?
Yeah, it's about the getting approval to miss classes. So we talked to him by what time, what day should we ask you to get approval to miss those classes?
By the end of spring break.
And should we email you or
Email me.
Okay.
Senator Good?
What room will the meeting be in? Will it be in the...
Yeah, 245.
Yep. That's the corner. It's not this, is it? Yeah, it's this corner. Okay. Yeah, so that corner room, 245. So walk out this door, that corner. Senator Sarr?
What if you have work?
If you have work, yeah, either find a proxy or take it off because this is probably our most important meeting here. Did you have something? All right. So, I mean, this is, as far as like importance, this is very important that we have you vote on it. So if I know that it can be difficult, but we do ask that you take off work. That's why we've been talking about it all year. Senator? Yeah.
If you do need a proxy for the budget, I was talked to today by somebody that has been a senator in the past and is very familiar with the budget. So if you do need a proxy, let me know and I can let them know.
I'll make a final comment on that though. Please, 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 let's limit proxies because we've gone through all of these. Yeah, we've gone through all of the, like, you've sat through all these different presentations, and so if you have a proxy who hasn't sat through these presentations, just fill in for you. Essentially, it's somebody who has a lack of knowledge on those specific areas. And we might have to re-inform them on different stuff, and it will make the budget process take a lot longer. And so you, being the informed senators, should be the ones voting on this stuff. Any other questions for me? Yeah. All right. Oh, that's not yours. Oh, sorry. There. Okay, we'll move in now into senator reports, and I guess we'll have Senator Whitty.
Should I go up to that middle podium?
Yes, please.
Hello? Oh, we can all hear me. Hi everyone, I'm Ray Whitty and I'm a Res Life Senator. That means my constituents are everyone that lives in the res halls here and also Stadium Heights. This year I've made it my personal project to implement gender neutral and inclusive housing. Last time I gave my Senate report, I mentioned that Stadium Heights there would be one building that would probably, hopefully be gender inclusive by fall 2019. I went back to Director Cindy Janey for just another update on that. And thanks to new technology called StarRes, all areas will be gender inclusive by fall 2019, not just one area. Of course, that comes with stipulations. We can't just magically make it happen. So Cindy Janey, her team and I are working on improving the bathrooms, because in order to make any area gender inclusive, you have to make the bathrooms gender inclusive and safer. Because if anyone's lived in any of the res halls, especially the community bathrooms are the ones that will be improving, those are dangerous in any sense of the way. Boy floor, girl floor. A lot of gross situations come with like the shower curtains. So like we are looking into adding doors, like physical doors onto the shower stalls, and not like just making them bigger as well in order to implement more students. So hopefully, like I said, this should be implemented by fall 2019. So after I'm hopefully out of here, but it'll help out many, many, many students to come. We will still have gendered rooms. So if you still want to live with another person that identifies as the same gender as you, you still have that option. It's just, it'll be like a checkbox of like, hey, I'd rather not live with someone of the same gender, or I don't identify as a gender, and they'll match you up with that check boxes. So now I yield and I'm open to any questions.
Are there any questions for Senator Whitty? President Abdulaziz?
I'm sorry, so how's that going to be, you said it's going to be, did you talk about how it's going to be implemented at all?
So there's technology that we just changed over, and it's going to be implemented because it's, so if anyone looked at or to apply for housing for next year, there's check boxes that are like, hey, you're okay with living with an LGBT student, check here, and it's like, how important is that to you? So it's going to be implemented by having another set of check marks, whereas like I identify as male, female, other, and then it'll say like, I would like to live with someone that is, again, check marks, male, female, other, per se, or non-gender conforming should be the better word, not other. So it'll just be implemented, like, there's not really a process, it's just, it'll happen. Does that answer your question, President?
Yeah.
Okay.
Senator MTS?
When you say literally dangerous, I don't know, I've never lived up.
So, community advisors have to go through the bathrooms at night to make sure like no one slipped and fall. And the curtains have been causing problems, like the outside. So there's two curtains when you walk into a community bathroom. There's one on the outside and there's one on the inside. It's just with there's precautions of why you can't have, let's say, boys in a girl's bathroom, per se, because people are so scared of what can happen, especially since it's only a curtain protecting you from other people going in and out. That's a very just broad example of what can happen. Whereas if we had locking physical doors, that's a lot harder to break in there. And like, honestly, that'd be cool no matter who you are to have, because like those curtains don't cover anything. Yep. Any further questions?
Senator Schmidt?
Do you know if Red's like plans to advertise like gender neutral or inclusive housing?
Yes, and we have been, or they have been working on that, and I've been working on that with the help of the LGBT Center as well, just to tell students, especially incoming students, because like, I didn't know about any of this when I started, and granted they didn't have a lot, but like nothing I knew about. So they are working a lot with marketing towards these students and reaching out to these students specifically, especially with they're also changing their name, like wording on forms is also being more inclusive. That way, like, if you're part of the community, you're looking for these keywords, we have to search a lot deeper than like other students, so like they're being reached out to. If there are no further questions, I'm always available after this, so thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Senator Proctor?
I have some technology to show, so.
And no, I was not in that picture. This is my friend's computer. Okay, so I'm a graduate senator. My name is Katrina. If you guys didn't know, I was kind of recently elected. So those of you who don't know me, I'm Katrina. And my constituents are graduate students, but being on the IT roundtable has kind of focused on really the student body as a whole. So I have a few different topics that I want to talk about, and it's pretty relevant to with the presentation that we had earlier today. So with IT solutions, in the Wissink Center, we're going to have new IT architects, is what they're going to be referred to. And those are going to be people that are going to be working right next to you instead of, looking kind of down at you. They're working right with you. And every key area, so whether it be like college department, so for example, human resources, they're going to have an architect dedicated to them so that they can work with specific groups of people and be familiar with kind of their specific needs. This won't require any more added staff as of right now. That may change with time depending on how many people are actually needed, but we're hoping to just keep it to the dedicated staff. In classrooms, there is new laser LED lights that are going to be put in projectors. These laser LED lights actually will last the whole lifetime of the projectors. So it will, in the end, it's going to cost less. These LED lights are a little bit more expensive. We're about 3 years out from actually replacing all of them, but they'll last the entire lifetime of the projector. And those, right now we're at about a 25 to 30% being completed. And then for the future, we're looking at some artificial intelligence, so having like Alexas in classrooms, smart classrooms, buildings. Obviously this is, kind of years out, but we're kind of preparing for the future with more and more students being very familiar with these at like young ages. It is important that we like keep moving up with time. And then we're open to new ideas as well. As far as proctoring services goes, there's been a lot of issues with Lockdown Browser. Not sure if any of you guys have used that, but I know that there has been a lot of issues with it just really not working in general. We actually only have one person here at MSU that is a certified proctor. There's no proctor center in Mankato. So there's a new technology called Proctored that has been proposed. The only thing with this is the policy issue. So this either needs to be course-wide, department-wide, or just all online classes university-wide. So that's kind of the main issue right now, is how to implement that and staying consistent. And as you guys probably have all noticed, we did have a new website launch. And really, I went to MSSA and did ask for some feedback from students yesterday in the office, if you were in there. And one of the main complaints was that the website isn't very friendly towards current MSU students, because they had a hard time finding D2L and MavMail, things that we all use on a daily basis. My answer to kind of that complaint is that the new website is mostly dedicated for prospective students and parents to look at, not necessarily students. But if you do go to the main page on the website, you scroll all the way down past our lovely president's face. You can find a link that says current students. Click on that. It will lead you right to D2L and MavMail links. And the problem with the old site was that there was just too many links right on that main page. So our focus now is just to have less links. If you're concerned about new links, so for instance, someone from Barnes & Noble, they realized that when you search the word textbooks, Barnes & Noble did not come up. So they made a complaint about that. And Tedmond Johnson would be the one to email if you have a complaint on something that if you're searching it and it's not giving you the right things that maybe it was giving you in the past. He's the one to email. He can fix that pretty much instantly. And then if you do have additional feedback on the new website and ways to change it, you can email Lindsay Beyer as well. And again, it is the middle of the semester, and like the gentleman earlier mentioned, there's still about 30,000 pages that need to be fixed. It's the middle of the semester, so that's going to be, it's still a work in progress, so just want to note that as well. And then D2L, and this kind of varies based on college, but the problem is that not all of our professors here at MSU are using D2L. So really the main goal right now is having consistency through our whole campus. So the library has kind of worked to set up these workshop series, and basically they help professors who maybe haven't used D2L before. So there's a class on building D2L right from scratch, using new platforms like MediaSpace if they want to do videos and podcasts, using Poll Everywhere. So that's kind of like an interactive technology. As a TA, I actually use that to take attendance in fun ways every day in my classroom. So that's really cool, and that's free. As of this semester, it was $14 last semester, so that's really nice. Our university has partnered with them. And then with these workshop series, whole colleges and departments can attend them, so that there's that focus on those specific departments. And then I do have an infographic that was actually a survey taken by students, I believe this past fall. So this graphic kind of shows kind of students' complaints, I guess, on professors that were not using D2L. So basically, we're just trying to get a kind of consistent university-wide that professors are posting an up-to-date syllabus so students are aware of what assignments that they have throughout the semester, using the calendar so that they know about upcoming assignments, and can stay on top of those. And then using the grade book so that students can stay up to date on grades, and they don't have to use things like Excel, because grades will directly import from e-services. And I yield to questions.
Senator.
So I just had a quick question about like with the leasing.
Yes.
That one. Okay. So I'm wondering because when they built the new what's that building name? What's the new building called? The clinical science building. I should know that because that's what it is. So in the clinical science building, when they built that, they have and I forget the specific name for it, but it basically if you're hard of hearing and you need a hearing device, basically what it does is it has like mics throughout the room that will pick up voices so that when you plug into it, it's easier to hear from it. Not exactly sure the exact name, so I do apologize for that. But I'm wondering if that might get included with the possible design of the remodel listening hall for some of those classrooms.
You know, I'm not sure about that. I know like with a lot of kind of like the new technologies that they want to include, like the smart classrooms, having Alexas in classrooms, I believe that would be something that would be included in that. Again, you know, that's going to be kind of years out, but I do see that being a part of kind of the new technology to be seen more campus-wide over the extended next few years.
Are there any other questions?
Well, I'm just wondering, like, for those workshops that are like for faculty members in order to like how they can use e-tools, is there any requirement for these new faculty members to go through these workshops? Like, because I believe that students will agree that some teachers will use e-tools, so yes, for the sake of faculty.
As far as I know right now, it actually depends on the specific department or the specific college, because from what I can tell, the College of Education is pretty good about when new faculty comes in, they actually get a mentor with an old faculty member to kind of show them D2L, and there is a lot of videos that are given to new faculty members, but as far as I know, they're not necessarily required to attend any of these workshops. And so that's something that we're hoping to change in the future.
Are there any other questions? Thank you for your Senate report. All right, next we're going to move into new business, and we do have some motions. There was a motion by Senator Cronin and seconded by Senator Good, and essentially it was to facilitate a name change or to bring forward a name change. Senator Cronin has said it's okay. We're going to go ahead and table that to the Constitution Commission because they're the ones who ultimately vote on it anyways. And so they have heard your feedback. Constitution Commission will vote on that and decide. So that's been tabled. So the first motion, which is motion 85-02-28-1801, moved by Senator Johnson, seconded by Senator Pope. Whereas, citing SAC recommendations, be it resolved, request the reporter to track and provide an accurate number of newspapers and take per stand, per edition, immediately before placement of each edition and the placement of the next for the future, understanding of the environment, of the financial impact of circulation numbers and printed numbers.
Those environmental.
Environmental.
Yeah,
sorry. Environmental and financial impact of circulation numbers and printed numbers.
Yeah.
Of printed numbers?
Circulation of printed numbers.
Of printed numbers. Be it further resolved, the reporter is requested to present a report of their circulation numbers to MSSA and SAC at the end of the fall 2018 semester. Does anybody need clarification on the motion, or does everybody understand? Okay. To your motion, Senator Johnson.
Well, it's the same as what I had brought up last week, if we all remember that. And the main difference, I guess, is that the last one was requiring to. This just recommends that the reporter keeps track of their numbers and that they then report to us and to the Student Allocations Committee about the numbers that they have of their circulation. That way it helps to actually track how the printing budget is being used.
To the second, Senator Pope.
Yield to redundancy.
All right, Bill, you got the first question?
Well, I'd like to explain a couple of things on this. One of them is that the paper that reporter is using is recycled paper to begin with. The cost factor here isn't the issue on the papers, because the more volume of papers you buy, the cheaper the papers become. So that's a very small issue of this. The environmental issue really doesn't exist, because this is recycled paper. This paper is being printed on. If you need these papers to be recorded, because some of these are going empty, some of them have too many in them, but that's because this would have to be jobbed out to the vendors. You know what that's going to do to the cost from the vendors for the papers to be accurately checked? And this is a whole additional, they're having trouble getting the vendors to do the delivery anyway. So a solution here might be to look at a student position to do this, and finding the funding for that student position, rather than make this such an issue, because, you know, it can be done, but where's the money come from? Where's the labor come from? Is it something we're going to contract out for? Is it something we're going to keep in-house? So, I would just like to put that in.
Senator Good?
Permission for 2 questions for Senator?
Yes.
First question is, I just want to clarify on the word usage, if it suggests or if it requires.
It's just suggesting, it's just recommending. It's not requiring them to. It's just, hey, you know what, we think you should do this, and you know, this is why we think you should.
And then that's only for this year?
That would be until fall of this calendar year, yes.
Okay. Yield for a comment?
Real quick.
Personally, and I might amend this if you would like to see it, I think it should be a requirement every year for SAC. Like, I think that should be reported to SAC every year. I think that's information that's needed. I don't think that's something that, even without the environmental issue that's clearly there put aside, I think that in order for SAC to be able to say this is what's being used, this is what's being done, I think it should be a requirement every fiscal year.
I want to add some clarification here. We can't technically require, we can only request. Did you have some clarification that you wanted to add, Mr. Cowan?
The contract that I saw this morning, which is House of Print in Medelia, has been changed. And Bill, this is probably news to you. But what I saw was a requirement to have 3 counts, 3 Tuesdays in every fall semester for the next 5 years, 3 Thursdays in every semester for the next 5 years, before and after counts. That was just written into the contract just a day ago. All right. By the reporter management.
So with that new information, are you comfortable tabling your motion indefinitely?
Well, I would just like to have them still report to us and to SAC those numbers as well, if we're able.
That language is not in the contract, so that makes sense.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to, give me 1 second. Let me review this for 1 second. I want to make sure that the language is going to be,
For the most part, it would just be the stuff on the back of the motion stuff.
Here's what I'm going to have you do, if you're okay with it, because let's simplify this, because if we do ask this of them, and so this is just, let's facilitate this more easily. Let's table this. We can do this, and if you're okay,
as long as it's in their contract, it's not as time sensitive, so I'm fine with tabling it.
Okay.
I just brought it back up because it was kind of sensitive with the contract negotiations having their deadline in mid-March.
So why don't we table this and you can rewrite to ask them to report those numbers to us, because as this reads, it reads differently than now what you're asking.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
I can do that.
When do you want, huh? All right. Want to table till the meeting after budget?
Sure.
All right. All right. Next motion. Motion 850228, 1802. Moved by Senator Johnson, seconded by Senator Christensen. And this is just a resolution without a whereas. Be it resolved to recommend the reporter to pursue a 1-year extension of the current printing contract expiring March 18, 2018. So the circulation numbers found as a result of motion, you're probably going to have to scratch that.
Yeah.
The result of motion 85282.1 are properly vetted, leading to a fiscally responsible decision for a future long-term contract. Senator Johnson, to your motion.
Excited what just happened with this. Kill it.
All right. Your motion, your table off.
Cool.
All right. Is there any other new business? We handled that pretty effectively. Yeah. Thank you, David Gown.
Well, I didn't write the amendment, they did, so.
Well, thank you for...
All right, so now that we're done with new business, we're going to move into announcements. Are there any announcements? Senator Good.
Okay. So just a little bit of news without giving too much away. So Sam from Maverick Adventures just got a really great email about possibly getting a lot of bicycles. So there's just a matter of where to put it. So keep that in mind next week. Okay.
Senator Hubert?
Just an update on something I said a couple weeks ago. The handball team competed at nationals this past week, and the women placed third, the men's placed fourth, and we took a combined title of third. And we are the only club team that plays against all varsity sports at nationals, so it was pretty exciting. And I just wanted to say that.
Senator Hubert, was yesterday your birthday? Would the Senate be interested in singing her a happy birthday song? All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lori. Happy birthday to you.
So tomorrow there is this event going on, Numbers with Fake News. This is an event sponsored by SPJ, Society of Professional Journalists. I will be participating in representing MSSA. They were looking for a manager wildlife and landscaping. And yeah, meeting is going to be tomorrow at 5 p.m. It's like where. But if you're interested in it, it's going to be a political talk, political panel. So you guys, if somebody of you guys are interested in participating about it, we're going to be discussing about how the media affects in politics. So let me know about it. I will give you the location. Sorry about that. It is on campus. Yeah, it's really. Yeah, it's pretty well. I will give you details about it later. I guess contact me if you are interested in it. That's about it.
Senator Ramsey?
So you might know I'm kind of heading the mental health initiative, and right now the goal for that, I want to bring this up right now since the next meeting is the budget 2 weeks away. And the general goal for what that is to help change the climate on campus and like the stigma around mental health, and kind of do a lot of education, because as far as things go with the counseling center, unless we're trying to add a new fee to fund that more, they're pretty much operating where they can without generating a huge wait list, and we don't want that at all. That's a bad thing. So it's something we can do outside the counseling center. Fees
trying to kind of change that idea of what mental health is, educate people on like what causes it, what it looks like, blah, 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 blah. Some of my ideas like with that are like a flyer campaign, so myth versus reality, bringing in speakers, making sure Starfish is equipped with the resources that you have on campus and such. And this is definitely going to be a long-term project, so a lot of this will be infrastructure building, so I definitely need help. So if anyone's interested in working on that, could you put your name to me if you know anyone who would be interested in working on that? Pass on their name or my email, whatever way works for that. I'm going to have a formal like mission statement and sort of thing typed out by the end of this week, but I don't want to waste our time after the budget meeting, keep everyone up longer, so I wanted to bring it up now.
Yeah. And I would encourage you with future progress with this to have a senator report regarding what happens, because I think that'd be something the Senate would be interested in. Bill? Did you? All right. Is there any other announcements? Go ahead, Mark.
On behalf of the CSU, I wanted to wish everybody a great spring break. Some of you might be staying here, some of you might be going home, some of you might be going to Mexico, Florida, Jamaica, somewhere else. I ask you to have safe travels, to think about what you're doing, you're in your way, that you come back safely to all of us as well, and have a great break. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, got no other announcements. We'll move back to roll call. Senator Thompson. Here. Senator Tao. Here. Senator Good. Here. Senator Dufresne. Senator Johnson. Senator Kintan. Here. Senator Collins. Senator Warner. Here. Senator Cronk. Here. Senator Hebert. Here. Senator Bob. Senator Samoa. Here. Senator Paul. Senator Preswell. Here. Senator Dominguez. Senator Imtiaz. Here. Senator Cici. Senator Christensen. Here. Senator Pope. Senator Hoja. Here, proxy. Senator Nelson. Senator Ramsey. Here. Senator Landis. Proxy. Senator Czar. Here. Senator Vega. Here. Senator Cronin. Here. Senator Ogun Salami. Senator Schmidt. Here. Senator Trenny. Here. Senator Whitty. Here. President Abdulaziz. Present. Vice President Kramer. Here. Meeting adjourned at 4:35.